It is 7 o'clock. So we will call to order this meeting of the Planning Commission for January 28th, 2025. Abby, would you do the roll, please?
Adams.
Here.
Bruce.
Here.
Paulson.
Here.
Summers.
Here.
And Heniro is present. Harp.
Here.
You are, okay, my apologies. And Sonntag is absent and excused.
All right, great. First item of business is the approval of the minutes of our January 14th, 2025 Plan Commission meeting. Does anybody have corrections or comments on the minutes? I have just one question for staff. I just want to be clear. I'm looking at the contingency number 14 on page 6. I just want to make sure I understand. Resolution of engineering staff comments to the satisfaction of the city engineer doesn't necessarily mean all the comments will be incorporated, correct? It could be that the city engineer resolves it in a way that makes that particular comment from the engineer something that can be deleted or.
Right, yeah, they may have a comment and the applicant could propose a different idea that also satisfies the concern that prompted the comment. And as long as the city engineer is satisfied, then that would be satisfied.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. All right, thanks. Then with no corrections, the minutes as drafted of our January 14th, 2025 commission meeting are accepted. All right. We have two other agenda items. The first one is rezone the property north of 2100 Bristol, Middleton High School, west of 2403 Park Lawn Place, Middleton High School football field, from conservancy to Parks and Recreation for baseball, softball field projects.
I would move that we accept the findings of fact and recommend rezoning to the council.
All right. Can I get a second for that motion?
Adams will second.
Thank you. All right, discussion.
Just a brief update from staff. In the memo that was included in the packet, I had mentioned that Middleton Cross Plains Area School District and city representatives had met with CARPC, which is the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission, back in February of 2024 to discuss the environmental corridor that exists in this area and covers the property that is being rezoned. What CARPC had indicated to us is that they further delineated the environmentally sensitive areas, and those are outside of the parcel. So they said that this parcel of land could be removed from the environmental corridor, which would be a minor change request. And I initially had thought that we would request this change at a staff level, but after further consideration, I realized that it may be possible for them to construct this facility without removing the property from the environmental corridor. I have reached out to CARPC staff to ask them if that could be a possibility. If not, then I would recommend that the environmental corridor issue be handled with the site plan review, which is going to come forward to the Plan Commission sometime over the next few weeks or months. And so I'm not recommending that we make any changes right now because we're waiting on additional information from CARPC on that.
Okay, thank you, Abby. And I do like that change. I think we have seen other situations in which the environmental corridor includes things like the skate park and a parking lot. Those are very easy decisions to go ahead and ask for the change because it's paved and, you know, under our own ordinance. Paved paved land is not to be included in the environmental corridor, but in this case, especially so close to the creek corridor, I think it's a good idea to wait and see what CARPC learns. We do have in our zoning code, we have provisions for if construction is going to take place in an environmental corridor, what needs to be done. I totally support this project, and I would prefer not to do anything with the environmental corridor designation until we know for certain whether or not we need to make a change. So thank you for following through with CARPC on that. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Didn't even wait for me to say.
We know the drill.
Okay. All right, so we will recommend the rezoning to the Common Council. Thank you all. Okay, item number 2, conditional use permit to site stormwater management facilities in Conservancy Zoning District for the Pheasant Crossing subdivision, former Ziegler Farm, west and east of High Road.
I move adoption of resolution 2025-07, granting the conditional use permit and the conditions attached thereto.
Okay, can we get a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Discussion. Abby, do you have a staff update at all for us?
No updates on this item.
Okay. I do have some questions, and maybe these are questions that should come up later. But just to be clear, this will be a final action not requiring council approval, correct?
Correct.
Okay. On page 25, there's a mention of posting a placard. The owner shall post, and this is H, in a prominent public place and in a form approved by the zoning administrator, a placard with the approved conditional use permit number, the nature of the operation, name and contact information for the operator, and contact information for the city. Is this only during construction, or is this forever?
I think that language is intended for interior building spaces where conditional uses are granted, and I am guessing that this was just copied over. But let me look and see if I can find this in the code.
Thank you. And then continue, go ahead.
Because that language sounds awfully like how you have to post a parcel with 2 weeks' notice before a public hearing on a conditional use.
Yeah.
And so I don't remember us ever doing this in the past. Posting a placard afterwards. Well, except in cases where we need to, there's a use restriction. But in this case, it's a stormwater pond.
Mhm.
So not like people are gonna go swimming or fishing.
Right.
Or something there. I mean, I hope not.
I'm just looking, and under conditions of approval for a conditional use permit, it is listed as one of the conditions. They also must keep a copy of the CUP, including the list of all conditions on the site available for inspection to the public during business hours. So again, I think this is more, it's written into the new zoning ordinance, but I think it's intended more for conditional use permits related to land uses that are inside of like a commercial building. I don't think it applies to this.
Should we strike this one then from the?
I would recommend striking it. Yeah.
Yeah. I would, can we amend our main motion? Okay.
Yep.
I would amend the main motion to delete condition H and renumber the other conditions in proper sequence.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
While we're talking about this item, just one other question for staff. The applicant talked about the stormwater ponds being landscaped so that they transition into the natural areas accordingly. Is there a landscaping plan that would be part of their stormwater plan, or how will that be addressed?
That's a good question because for a subdivision, we don't normally have a landscaping plan. It's usually for a commercial property.
I'm not asking for a plan per se, other than maybe we get a description of types of plant materials or how this treatment will be done, and somebody reviews it and says, yeah, that's appropriate.
Yeah, I know they've been talking a lot about focusing on native plantings due to proximity to the conservancy. Daphne, were there any landscaping documents attached? I don't recall
I didn't
seeing.
see any.
No, I didn't see any.
Okay.
Do we have standards in our ordinance about landscaping requirements around detention basins? Stormwater detention basins in our subdivision code. I thought there was something about certain plantings, but I'm not remembering where it is.
Well, if the staff could look that up, let's go ahead and settle the First Amendment regarding paragraph H or condition H. All those in favor of striking condition H and renumbering the remaining conditions in order, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it.
So, I was just looking at the landscaping requirements section, which is 10.08.30. And it talks about landscaping being provided based on the following requirements for building foundations, paved areas, street frontages, yards, and buffer yards. So I don't know when that would get reviewed. I wonder if that's something, because the city is gonna take ownership of the ponds. I wonder if that's something that would get reviewed by Kevin over in Parks and Rec. But I'm not sure, Randy, I'm sorry.
These are gonna be outlots, right? But
Yes,
they're gonna be dedicated to the city?
they will, yeah.
Well, will they?
Will
That's,
they?
that's
I'm
one of the
not sure.
questions, that's one of the questions I have. Outlet 6, if we zoom in. Outlet 6 is the new park.
Yep.
That one should be dedicated, but I believe the notes in this version, which is on the other side of the page, it says outlets 11, 27, and 28 are to be dedicated to the public for stormwater conveyance and access. And then
Outlets.
so many others are going to be privately held for stormwater purposes. Outlet 12 is to be privately held and maintained for private alley purposes. 12 is planned to be zoned SRH, and 6 through all those are planned to be zoned PR, but they aren't. They're going to be conservancy, correct?
I think
They
that
are
this is
conservative.
I think that this is an old attachment.
Yep.
Because yeah, I think you're right. The only one that would be zoned PR is Outlot 6.
And it doesn't indicate, so we know that with the exception of 6, just looking at note 16, all those others, 18, where are they? 18 through 33 minus a couple. It doesn't say if those will be dedicated, and those are the conservancy lands. I mean, this whole area that we're looking at right now, outlot 17, 16, 15, 14, 32, 36, 37. I think this is still part of 17, those guys right there. That's all the Graber Greenway that we have a current
Yes.
project on. So I think it's really important for us to know, even like outlet 26, I don't know if that's in the list. No, that's privately held for stormwater purposes. But we need to have a lot of these dedicated to the city in order to accomplish what we're hoping to do stormwater wise with this Graber Greenway project.
So I will say that I guess, first of all, the outlots that are listed that mention PR zoning, that was their initial proposal, is that those be zoned Parks and Rec, and that was not something the city was interested in because we didn't want to have several little pocket parks
Mhm.
scattered about that we were obligated to maintain. My understanding from the developer is that the Greenway non-developable land that is not being used for stormwater may continue to be privately held by the family. That is my understanding. And we had worked with our city attorney, Parks and Rec, and Public Works staff. And our city attorney had indicated that unless we're willing to count that toward park dedication, the city couldn't require that land be dedicated. We do have a meeting tomorrow with our Public Works Director and city engineer, and the topic of the meeting is outlots and Pheasant Crossing. We're meeting with the developers to try to get clarity on that, because they submitted their final plat today, and there's still a lot of questions around what is happening with all the outlots. I think that certainly the outlots that are being used for stormwater management are being purchased by the developer. I don't know if they're intended to be dedicated to the city, where the land would actually be owned by the city, or if they are going to be owned by the HOA and maintained by the HOA for the stormwater ponds. But the other undevelopable lots, like the large ones that you're seeing here that include wetland indicators, outlot 32 and 17, and I'm pretty sure 16, those I believe the family would like to maintain ownership of, with the knowledge that they would be restricted from any kind of development purposes. But they want to maintain ownership.
Commissioner Paulson?
So we've approved the rezoning, right? Has a final subdivision plat been recorded?
No,
Okay.
that was what was submitted today.
Okay, so we will see that subdivision plat.
Yes.
Okay. And usually when you record something as an outlot, it becomes automatically undevelopable if it's recorded that way on the final plat. But, I mean, I don't think it
Matters.
is really something we can do now at the conditional use permit phase. But, I think we want to note that before we approve the final plat, that issue should be resolved.
Yep,
Yeah.
I agree.
Because usually the city doesn't, I've never seen a landscaping plan on an outlot that's maintained by the HOA or the developer. And I don't think the city actually wants a lot of stormwater outlots, because then you have liability and maintenance issues, right? Usually it's the HOA, so.
My only reason for bringing the comment up was if part of the
Yeah.
review process was that we get some natural landscaping, is that we get natural landscaping, and
Mm-hmm.
that's all.
Nope. And we can't add that, or could we, as a part of the conditional use permit?
We can.
Yeah.
As part of a conditional use, you can add any conditions that are listed in the ordinance that are related to the performance of the land relative to the city's policies and goals. So we could add a condition that the developer should submit an appropriate landscape plan for the outlots under the CUP that are subject to, that are allowing stormwater, right? Because the CUP is really to allow a stormwater facility on what is normally just an outlot with nothing on it, right? Because that's a use of land as a, what are we calling it, a minor facility or something?
I think it's utilities. Yeah.
Yeah.
Community, public utility. maybe.
And I think that that plan could be a descriptive plan.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be a full.
Right. Could be a descriptive
Like-
plan that they work with staff on.
Mhm.
Does somebody want to phrase that as a motion? Developer submit an appropriate and descriptive landscape plan for the outlots.
Yeah, so
For review by city staff.
But just for the outlots to be used
for stormwater.
to city staff for review. Okay, so Commissioner Paulson is
Randy, you want to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Can we get a second for the motion to include as a condition that the developer submit an appropriate descriptive landscape plan for the outlets to be used for stormwater? Submit that to the city staff for review.
I'll second that.
Paulson, okay. Okay, so we've got another amendment to make, and that's to add a condition. I just read the condition. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Back to a couple questions I had. Number 2, this is on page 28, Daphne, in the resolution itself. It says applicant will support the addition of these outlots to the environmental corridor as maintained by the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission. First of all, aren't they already in the environmental corridor? I thought they were, but second, let's assume they aren't. Who is the person doing the work here to get them, to get them added? Is that something we're expecting the developer to do? Or by saying applicant will support the addition, does that mean staff is going to make that request? I just want to be clear who's
It looks
responsible.
like it would be a staff request to
Okay.
get them added.
Yeah, and it looks like the current areas that they identified as conservancy are not in the environmental corridor.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Can private landlords or landowners interact with CARPC with regard to these designations? I don't think so. I think it has to come from
Let's come from the,
municipality. Trying to remember my county regs, but
That I don't know. I do know that the school district was able to set up a meeting directly with CARPC for
and the
other project.
developer of the Terrace Avenue project too. Didn't they have to meet with?
Yep.
We've met with CARPC, but that might have just, that might not have gone to the extent of asking for a change. And then finally, the contingency number 3. Can someone translate that for me? None of the regulations pertaining to small-scale public services and utilities are applicable for stormwater detention or conveyance.
I'm guessing that this is in the section of the zoning code that talks about conditional uses and additional standards that would apply. I'm just gonna pull it up here.
Yep.
We should have had Mark jump on the Zoom. I told him we didn't need him. I was wrong.
I thought he had that in his report, actually.
He may have.
Oh, is it?
Every section of the conditional use permit ordinances has like some additional standards that may apply, but this is probably, in this case, because stormwater is lumped in with other types of utilities, I'm guessing that they don't apply, but
I
it's
think
just-
most of those standards are for like screening and access management.
But he said not applicable. There you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just.
or yeah, exempt from density, intensity, and bulk regulations.
So therefore, these regulations in Article 2 do not apply. Yes, that's This is what we're talking about right there.
Yeah.
Paragraph A. Okay, I would have specified Article 2 in that section, but this is, I mean, in the or the resolution, but this is fine. As long as I understand that's what it's about. Okay, any other comments, questions? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of adopting or approving a conditional use permit to site stormwater management facilities in Conservancy zoning district for the Pheasant Crossing subdivision, former Ziegler Farm, west and east of High Road, as amended to delete condition H and renumber, and to add a condition that the developer submit an appropriate descriptive landscape plan for the outlots to be used for stormwater, to submit that to city staff for review, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, and we've reached the end of our agenda, so we are adjourned.
Nice.